Hello. Hi. I've never used one of these tiny little mics, but this works great. Hi, everybody. Hi. Welcome. Good evening. It's so wonderful to be here in this beautiful space with all of you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for the incredible enthusiasm for this very special event. I'm John Blomgren. I feel like I've met majority of you. I'm one of the owners of Imprint Bookshop with my husband, Garrett Jones, over there. And I'm just personally really delighted that this has all come together. This has been about maybe 6 months in the making, at least. This is just an incredible honor to be here with Terry and Anna and Richard and Lonnie and Amy. And I also just want to first start by thanking the Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship for opening their sanctuary to us tonight. So that we could come together in fellowship with one another, which feels like exactly the right spirit for this type of evening. Nights like this remind me what an honor it is to work in service of writers and the worlds that they open up. Writers who ask us to slow down, look closer, and remember that we're not separate from the natural world, but woven into it. This evening is a partnership between Imprint Bookshop and the Jefferson Land Trust, and we're grateful to them for making tonight possible. I want to give a particular thanks to Rick Brewer, right there trying to hide at the back. Rick and I have worked very closely on putting this whole event together. He's a bit more seasoned in the event planning, and I feel like I've learned a lot from you, Rick, so thank you very much. What the Jefferson Land Trust does in protecting land, water, and community in this region is very much in the spirit of what we're about to share together tonight. And before we get started, I would first like to acknowledge that the land that we now inhabit is originally home to the indigenous tribes of the S'Klallam, the Chemakum, the Tawana, and the Suquamish. These tribes have lived on and cared for the land and water around us for thousands of years. We understand that the lives of these tribal people have irrevocably been changed in ways that cannot be undone due to European colonization. We recognize and acknowledge the tribal history and presence on the land, and we are here to celebrate and protect these lands in collaboration with the people who have lived here since time immemorial. I'm pleased now to welcome Lonnie Greninger, Vice Chair and Culture Director of the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe, to open our program with a blessing. Lonnie also currently serves as the Department Director of Social and Community Services, working closely with federal, state, and local governments, as well as numerous tribal and non-tribal organizations to engage in policy and cultural work for her tribe and on behalf of Indian country. We are honored to have her with us tonight. Please help me give a warm welcome to Lonnie Greninger.
Manu ait tongan siamnas jayacha. All right, so I am a language teacher, so repeat after me. Manu ait tongan. Manu ait tongan. Manu ait tongan. Ooh, you guys sound really good. Manu ait jai, good work. All right, Manu ait tongan is very good evening. Okay, tongan, like tongs, tongan, evening. And Nushayamutsan, Manu, much, many, really good. Manu ait tongan, really good evening to you all. As I was introduced, I'm Lonnie Greninger. My traditional name is Yuchsia. And I'm really honored to be able to help bring blessing into this space tonight. Although you all walk in here with blessings of your own, I am so very honored to be able to speak mine out loud in front of all of you all tonight. One of the theme words that I want to leave you with before I sing one verse of a prayer song is weaving, sharing, evolving, right? And I was just thinking about how I purposely dressed as certain earrings and certain necklace, a certain skirt, and how my hair is done tonight is all about sharing and weaving and evolving and moving forward. I know it's really little, but here's a cedar woven basket on my necklace, okay? Weaving together, okay? We weave together. Our histories weave together. Our present and our future weaves together. Our knowledge is going to weave together tonight. All of our knowledge is going to weave together. We learn from one another. We share. You might notice that I'm wearing a non-traditional skirt, okay? Ribbon skirts do not come from the Pacific Northwest, okay? These come from our more, say, like our Midwestern cultures or our Southern cultures, Navajo, all that. And so these things now we have indigenous peoples are weaving their cultures together. We're weaving our regalia together. This is becoming more pan-indigenous, and it's okay for me to wear it as a Pacific Northwest Native American. And my hair is braided, so braiding, sharing, weaving, evolving, and moving forward together. That's the theme that I want to be able to leave you with tonight. And so I want to be able to share a prayer song with you. This actually comes from Nuke'et, or Port Squam. Joseph Price is the artist of this. He's the creator of this song. It's called the Saya song. Saya means grandmother. But he gave my family permission to sing it, so I am able to share it with you publicly tonight. But he also gave me permission to change the words to suit the situation. And so what you're going to hear me say is, Itau Nischayacha. I love my friends and family. It's a blessing song. And what I hope that this communicates to you with music and with the lyrics and the tone and the notes that I'm singing is that love is weaving us together. That love is going to bring us closer into sharing, exchanging, evolving, and moving forward together. And again, weaving together our past, our present, and our future together. Because without weaving together, we can't have the greatest of each of our worlds coming together. Right? Yes. All right. With that, the Saya song. Whoa, hey, oh, hey, oh. 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 Whoa. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if I was expected to be left speechless, and so moved immediately in this program. So thank you, Lonnie. Now I'd like to invite Richard Tucker to join us. Richard is the executive director of the Jefferson Land Trust and has spent more than 40 years in conservation work, including projects in Florida, Georgia, and positions in Alabama with the Nature Conservancy. During his 11 years leading the Jefferson Land Trust, he has greatly expanded the organization's protected lands, benefiting wildlife, salmon, farmers, and this community we share. Please welcome Richard Tucker.
Good evening, everybody. It is an honor to be here on behalf of Jefferson Land Trust. We are an organization that works with our community to protect places that matter in Jefferson County, and we're very honored to be a part of this group tonight. Before I do say anything further, I want to just really welcome and thank Imprint Books, for without them this wouldn't happen, and we all need... And we all need to support our local bookstores. I grew up with a father who had 3 jobs in suburban Philadelphia on the New Jersey side of the Delaware River. I never went hiking, I never went fishing, I never went camping until I was in college. And where I learned my love of nature was in books. I went to the local library, and my mother for Christmas one year bought me America's Wonderlands by National Geographic, the first edition. And that really taught me about the wonders of the world. And so I'm a huge fan of bookstores and a huge fan of books. And that's why I am grateful to be associated with Imprint Books. The Land Trust, we are going on, we were founded in 1989. We've been doing work with our community ever since. As you may know, I am actually retiring at the end of June, and I'm moving to Ireland. But there's a story I want to tell. Lonnie mentioned about weaving and connections. There's a monument near Cork where I'm moving. It's a monument to the Cherokee Nation, because during the famine, after suffering the Trail of Tears, the Cherokee people sent $144 at that time to Ireland to help feed the population who was being decimated by famine. It's a moving monument about how peoples on different sides of the world can come together and help each other. So I just want to say thank you for being here. It's going to be a really incredible evening. I think we will learn a lot, but also we come together in the love of conservation. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Before we hear from Terry, I want to offer us all a chance to just take a breath and arrive fully into this evening. Amy Ringel is a multi-instrumentalist, singer, songwriter, song leader, storyteller, and what she herself calls a community enthusiator. Thank you for introducing me to that word. She writes plays and sings with moments of sacred communion in mind, and does all that she can as a musician and as a leader to make such moments more likely. I'd say tonight is exactly such a moment. Please welcome Amy Ringel.
It's such a joy to be here. I sing this song for the divinity tree and for all the tall, thick trees and all that we've learned from them about our own humanity, and may the green prevail on the earth, and may it prevail in us. And I'm going to have my eyes closed because I'll be in the forest in my imagination, so feel free to join me there. Blazing mystery, please make of me a tree, turning sunlight into green, turning longing into leaves in your forest canopy. I am dancing in your breeze as your birds fly in to feed on your berries and your seeds. When I feel, I do believe that the one is in the many, that your ever-flowing chi makes a masterpiece of meaning, the patterns tumbling through, the dying born anew. There's so much to be and do, and all of it is you, you, you. Oh, blessed mystery, please make of me a tree, rooting down and deep within, where the end is the beginning, in your soil down below. We are drawing in your flow, we are sharing what we know, we are learning as we grow. And I know and I believe that the one is in the many, that we give and we receive as a vast expanding family, the patterns tumbling through, the dying born anew. There's so much to feel and see. So I praise you, mystery, as you make of me a tree. I'm delighted just to be here in symbiotic glee. In your forest canopy, I am dancing in your breeze as your birds fly home to sing to the one in
Thank you, Amy. That was the first time I've ever had the opportunity to hear Amy sing in person. I watch you online a lot, but every time you post something, I'm like tuned in. So thank you very much. That was beautiful. All right, now to the heart of our event. I first read Terry Tempest Williams when I was an undergraduate student in environmental education at Huxley College in Bellingham. We were assigned to read Refuge, an unnatural history of family and place, and I wrote a pretty decent paper on it. I just reread that paper this week, and I was like, wow, I do believe my writing's come a long way since then. But I still remember how that book impacted me, the way that certain books do. The intertwining grief of losing her mother to cancer as the beloved bird refuge of her childhood is consumed by the rising waters of the Great Salt Lake. In reading Terry's work for the first time, I learned something I have not forgotten, what it truly means to be in love with a place, and how essential it is, how courageous, really, to look directly at the hard things in our lives without looking away. So when Terry came into Imprint on my very first indie bookstore day last year, almost a year and a week, or a year ago next Saturday, indie bookstore is next Saturday, keep that in mind, in support of her husband, Brooke Williams' 2 weeks from Saturday, sorry. So when Terry came into Imprint, in support of her husband, Brooke Williams' new book, Encountering Dragonfly, I truly felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be in my new role as a bookseller. My educational background and my current profession coming together full circle right there in our humble little bookshop in Port Townsend. Brooke's publisher had given me a heads up, thankfully, so I had time to dig out my old copy of Refuge, nearly 25 years old, dog-eared, sun-faded, clearly loved, and Terry signed it. Thank you. It was a very meaningful day for this new bookseller. Terry is the author of 17 books of creative nonfiction. If Refuge was where many of us first found her, her work has only expanded from there. Finding Beauty in a Broken World, When Women Were Birds, The Hour of Land, Erosion, Essays of Our Undoing. Each book a different angle on the same essential questions. What do we owe the places that made us? What does it mean to bear witness? And how do we stay open to beauty when the world keeps giving us reasons to close down? She is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Letters and currently serves as writer-in-residence at the Harvard Divinity School. She divides her time between Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Castle Valley, Utah, for just a little longer, which feels right for someone whose work has always lived between the life of the mind and the life of the land. In her essay, A Beautiful Rugged Place from Erosion, she wrote, "We are prisoners of an ideology that prevents us from seeing the world as it is. We are captives of a view of things that gives them a false appearance of self-evidence. Our task is to change the world. No, our task is to change our view of the world." Her new book, The Glorians, feels like her answer to that call. In a time of political fragility and climate chaos, Terry introduces us to the Glorians, not distant deities, but the ordinary, often overlooked presences all around us: animal, plant, memory, moment. An industrious ant ferrying a coyote willow blossom to its queen, the night sky, a flash of contact between species. Moving between the red rock desert of Utah during the pandemic and the Harvard Divinity School where she now teaches, Terry turns not to despair but to deep reflection and finds in these small, insistent presences a call to attention and something that looks a lot like hope. It's a field guide to finding grace in the unexpected and an invitation to engage with our world with renewed intention. Tonight, Terry will be in conversation with Anna Brady, an advocate, writer, and attorney specializing in representing Native American tribes and the protection of natural resources. And for those of you who may not know, Anna grew up right here in Port Townsend. She was Terry's student in the Environmental Humanities program at the University of Utah. And after 2 decades of adventuring and advocating across the American West, she has found her way back home, where she and her husband are raising their 2 small children among what she beautifully calls kin and community, both human and beyond human. In the years between, Anna joined the staff of Utah Dene Bikaya. Did I pronounce that right? Utah Dene Bikay. Okay. A Native nonprofit that helps spearhead the tribally led effort to protect Bears Ears National Monument, 1.3 million acres of living sacred landscape. She is now an attorney with Zions Chestnut. Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay. A Seattle firm with a 60-year legacy of representing tribes across the country, and recently argued a case before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals that restored a tribe's access to sacred waterfront lands, including a tribal cemetery that had been occupied and trespassed for over a decade. Terry has said of her that Anna is one of the most eloquent and graceful human beings on the page and in the world that she has ever met. That is no small thing coming from Terry Tempest Williams. Please help me welcome Terry Tempest Williams and Anna Brady.
Good evening. I'm nervous, I'm moved, and it's a privilege for Brooke and I to be here with you. And Amy, I think you had all of us in tears. Amy sent me that gorgeous song, Make of Me a Tree, We. And Brooke and I were listening to it as we were going through the big trees towards Santa Cruz, and we were just both weeping. So to hear you in person was such a gift. Thank you. My gratitudes first to Port Townsend. I have never been in a community where we have felt so welcomed. Last year when Brooke came on book tour, we fell in love with you. And it's just a privilege to be here. When my editor said, "Where would you like to go?" the first spot was Port Townsend. And I mean that. Thank you, John. I love your bookstore, and we were so excited when we walked in, and to think a year ago we dreamed this into being, and here it is. I'm so glad we're all alive, you know? And Garrett, thank you. We had this time before this gathering to just talk and meander, and it's such a gift for all of us to be part of the Imprint community. I really want to acknowledge Lonnie Greninger. Thank you for your prayer, for your blessing, for your presence. We are all very mindful of whose lands we are guests of. Red Pine, thank you. Brooke and Red Pine have a very special relationship that I've been a witness to, and to be able to be with you, to stay with you, to learn from you is deeply a humbling privilege. Jefferson Land Trust, Richard Tucker, Rick Brewer and Kate Godman. I had the pleasure of having a conversation a month ago with members of this beautiful land trust, and I think this really is where the power is in our communities. I often think of land trust as water. We flow into the nooks and crannies and secret spaces and can influence in ways that no other environmental organization can. And this is certainly true of this one in this county. Christy from Finn River, this is how we came to this place before Centrum years and years ago, decades ago, with friends like Sam Hamill. So it was so beautiful to see again the expansion of this community through the lens of farming and very good cider. And I want to pay tribute to my own hometown bookseller, and that's Andy Nettle and Marcy. They are now members of your community. We are jealous. Andy has been a key influence in my writing, you know that. He's the first person I go with a manuscript and say, what do you think? And what I love about Andy is he's been honest. And some made it and some didn't. But Andy, it's wonderful to see you in place here, and Marcy, and we love you. Last thank you is to Anna. I think for those of us who are teachers, there comes a point where your students become your teacher. And Anna, you are mine. And when I talk about her grace and eloquence, I mean it. The first day I met her, now we're in our second decade, I thought this is a special student. This is a special human being. And her fierce intellect, her power and presence, and the work that I have seen her do with the tribes, both in Utah and now here in the Pacific Northwest, I am so honored to be your friend. She is in the tradition of Charles Wilkinson and David Getchus and John Echo Hawk, and conservation in all its manifestations is a generational stance, and it is a privilege to stand with you today, and I'm terrified to be interrogated by her. So I'm just going to tell a few stories, and then we'll be in conversation and for about 40 minutes, and then we'll open it up to the community for questions. This time, like all times, is a very good one, if we but know what to do with it. Ralph Waldo Emerson. We are dreamers, and my grandmother was a dreamer. She was a self-taught Jungian scholar. She would interrogate us when we would stay overnight with her. I come from a Mormon background, and so we had cousin brothers and sisters, 9 of us. And we would all fight to see who could stay overnight at Mimi's house, Mimi and Jack's, my grandfather. But it was also intimidating and scary because we knew in the morning she would say, "Did God speak to you?" And by that she meant, "What did you dream?" And inevitably we would sleep in as late as we could because we knew we would face her with her buckwheat pancakes and her gaze. But there was one moment where I had a dream and I thought, oh, this is a good one. And I got up early and she was there in the kitchen. And I said, Mimi, I had a dream last night. And she said, oh, darling, that's wonderful. Do tell. And I said, well, I was walking across the street. Our road was called Commonwealth. I was going to see my best friend, Martha Young, who was 2 years older than I was. I knocked on the door. No one was home. And I knew that they had their glass sliding doors. They were always open. And so I went around back, opened them, and then walked directly into the living room and jumped up on the stone hearth. While I was standing there, a great horned owl flew through the open sliding doors and landed on my shoulder. And Mimi said, oh, darling, that's wonderful. I think you're about to menstruate. And that was not what I wanted to hear. But she had great cred after that. And would you believe me if I told you that my period came like 4 days later? She would talk about how dreams are the facts from which we must proceed. If we dared to look more deeply at what our dreams hold and can inspire, would we live more fully in the presence of all that binds us together as human beings? Might we become more open to seeing the visitations of the holy ordinary as moments of encountering, even inhabiting, grace? And could this contribute to our return to a collective embrace that unites our hearts rather than divides them? The theologian Thomas Berry writes, quote, "Our challenge is to create a new language, even a new sense of what it means to be human. It is to transcend not only national limitations, but even our species' isolation, to enter into the larger community of living species." The larger community of living species. I believe Earth is dreaming us into a new way of seeing, a new way of being, if we will favor our senses and receive what is coming to us through heartbreak and love. Joy, pain, and prayer make me to know your ways, instructs Psalm 25, verse 4. Whose ways? My God is not singular, nor gendered, nor human in form, but because the gods I recognize are many, multitudinous, and infinite, they are everywhere and commonplace, with mouths and eyes and arms and legs, with wings and hooves and fins and fur, with gills and trunks and leaves and spores, and in the case of the horned lizard, with eyes that can squirt blood as a carnal warning. Be aware of us and wary. The gods before me are large and small, underwater and rooted in soil. Some live inside the bodies of others, some live out of sight. The sublime minds of these gods inhabit all shapes and sizes, and their habitations are at once endless and ending. We have a hand in their survival, and they have a hand in ours. Before words, there was the dream. Before the dream, there was the encounter. I want to share with you the dream that drove this hunger to find out something. I remember the dream. It was March 20th, 2020, 1 week to the day of Friday the 13th, when we were, as a planet, in lockdown because of the coronavirus. I had left Harvard Divinity School as fast as I could. If I could have astral projected myself home to Brooke, I would have. But the dream I had was this. It was fall. I was walking through the gates into Harvard Yard. It was resplendent, red maples, golden beech trees, bronze oaks. I knew I had to get to the tower. There was no tower. I turned, the tower was over in the corner. As I walked toward it, I saw there were 2 entry points. You could go straight up the stairs to the top of the tower, or you could go to the side up a spiral staircase. Around and around, I chose the spiral staircase. And when I landed on top, I looked down and I realized I was standing in the ruins of Cassandra's temple. I had the distinct feeling that I had forgotten something. I heard my name called, I turned. There was a woman, a professor, walking up the direct route with students behind her. The gate was closed. She said, "Terry, do you remember the vow you made to us?" And I said, "Remind me." And she said, "Your vow is the epic documentation of the Glorians." I woke up. What is a Glorian? That is what we're going to talk about tonight.
Well, what an honor, what an entry point. I, from my perspective, can only begin to hint at the surrealness of this moment for me in my home community, with many familiar faces, and a mentor who I dreamed of while still a girl here. and having had the opportunity to study, and now to hear Terry's words shared this evening, and that dream which she shared with me the year ago that John described when she and Brooke were visiting here for the release of Brooke's most recent book. And we walked at North Beach, a place I'm sure everyone in this room knows well, with my 2 small children, also a dream to be so deeply home with people I so deeply care about and who have profoundly informed who I am and who I am becoming. Terry gifted me the story of this dream, which she has now gifted to the world in her remarkable new book. And we stood on the sand with the sun beginning to filter through the April clouds, and I took that dream in, and I didn't have an answer right away. Terry asked, well, what do you think? She told me she described what she had been writing as, I think, cotton candy, stories of cartwheels. And, for 6 years, I thought, Terry, what have you been up to? And after she and Brooke departed, I kept coming back to that dream and thinking about it and thinking about the images. And I questioned, and then I wrote to her. And Terry asked that we begin our conversation with the letter that she captures at the end of the Glorians. So I think I'll read from that now. Terry, the dream you shared remained much in mind for me. This is what I was left wondering. Are the students, those following the teacher up the tower, might they be the Glorians? Have you not been firsthand witness to the next generation's rooted resolve and singular celebration of earth as the essence of spirit, the ultimate source? It seems to me indeed an epic tale not much yet told, the way so many young people are solemnly and joyfully leaning forward in service and in celebration, despite it all. Our species needs that energy and vision at no time more than now. The story of what the young visionaries, artists, and advocates are creating and doing is a genuine cause for hope in what often feel like dark times. It is, one might say, glorious. Terry wrote to me first. Some weeks later, I thought, my goodness, have I entirely overstepped? Have I told Terry Tempest Williams what her dream that's been motivating a book for 6 years means? I questioned, as we so often do when we stare in the mirror. But I had, as we practice doing, and as I still remain in practice doing, offered my voice where it felt most true. I offered it as my truth, the reflection, as literature does, holding up perhaps a truer mirror to see ourselves by at its best. And then Terry reached out and said some of the words that have been a profound honor for me alongside the work that I've been blessed to do on behalf of Indigenous nations in this country. She said that the dream helped, that my reading of the dream helped. And I was aghast. I was reinforced also to bring forth voice when we are uncertain, to offer a light, even if we don't know whether the flame will hold, right? And getting to crack into the rest of the Glorians, to fan its pages, to sit up late at night on my porch under the stars and read this book by headlamp while my children are sleeping. This is a revelation. And I think that's kind of where I want to turn, perhaps, in the conversation, is the shape of revelation, how it comes to us in grains, in shards, not whole cloth, and how often it comes through a breaking. It seems in these times that we talk a lot about how to persist, how to resist, how to show up, how to stay awake, how to not turn away in fear. And as John has said and others have acknowledged, I think Terry's work and her model, her example in the world, and I speak in firsthand, it's uncommon. It's uncommon, and it shows us a way forward. So, Terry, I know that you've talked a lot in our conversations of late since this summer, and in the book too, about this transformation of generational exchange. And you spoke of it this evening too, of teachers becoming students, students becoming teachers, this multi-directional exchange, which I think in some ways has some parallel with the kind of multi-species exchange or multi-directional capacity that we might expand upon. Where is that journey now? Where is your journey as a Cassandra, and as we hope a Cassandra who can open ears, where the curse might be lifted? Where does that find you in your journey as a teacher and as an offerer of the truth as you see it?
First of all, what I would say is, when I was writing this book, the dream became the template. Looking at what does Cassandra mean? What does that mean when Apollo fell mad over her and he gave her the gift of prophecy, as we know, and yet she did not return his advances. She refused to make love to him, and he was furious. No one refuses a god. And she did. And he knew he could not remove the gift he had given her. Gods cannot do that. But what he could do was give her the curse. And the curse, as we know, is that no one would be believed. So I looked at all these different angles. The one angle that I could not see was the one that Anna gave to me, which was the students, which is my life. I do not see myself as a writer. I know myself as a teacher. And that means that you're open to learning and that your students become the teachers. And it was such a shock to me when I received Anna's letter, because I thought, she's right. I completely ignored what was too much a part of me, which was the students and the professor. I had completely just ignored them. And it was when Anna brought that up, I thought, of course, that is a Glorian. And I think it did take courage, because some of the letter was edited out, just because, it's the difference between what's personal and what's private. But it was a brave letter, and I think that's what we count on, generations to generations, is to be honest with one another, to see what we can't. What I should tell you about another teacher, and this is going to be stream of consciousness tonight. It's not linear. So there are other writers in this room, and you know that sometimes you don't know what you've done until it's already finished, and you've already sent it to the publisher. I sent mine away, and I thought, oh, I remember this. And I called my editor, and she said, no, you're done. No, 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 no. But the story that I had forgotten was when I was 18 years old, all I wanted to do was be a poet. And I enrolled at the University of Utah in a poetry writing workshop. It was a visiting poet, Robert Mezzi, stern, not too generous, and somewhat aloof, but he was a good poet. And when we had our first meeting, there were 12 of us sitting around the table. He said, all of you here want to be poets. Few of you will be. Those who are, you'll be bad poets. And that was his opening statement. And then he said, but even so, I will give you my most important piece of advice. And we all leaned forward with our pens and paper. And he said, never, ever write about a dream. And somewhere in my 18-year-old bloodstream, that registered as a protest. And it literally took me 50 years to make good on that. So there is that. But where am I now in the journey? I think it's still ongoing, you know? And I think a book, Red Pine and Brooke and I were talking about it, you never really finish a book. It's handed back to you. Because my grandmother always said 1 + 1 = 3, and we thought she was just bad at math. But I think the third thing is the reader. And that's the gift you gave to me as both reader and friend. And I think we're all in this conversation of what does it mean to be human? How do we stay upright, as you suggest, Anna, in these really uncertain times? And how do we resist? How do we insist? How do we create in the face of chaos? And the only thing I know is to pay attention, to be present, and if we're present, we'll know what to do. Unplanned, unearned, a surprise. And to me, that's a definition of grace. And perhaps that's what the Glorians are, is a moment of grace when two energies fuse and you are present with one another. Multi-species, multi-generation, and in community, both human and wild.
I want to dive right into sort of what I see as, or what I'm still churning over after reading the book. There are a number of themes, motifs, pieces that circle throughout the story, but certainly the wrestling with this moment, what our species is, what we've done, what we're doing, what we're going to do about what we've done is there. And I hear it in the stories of your students. I know I saw it and felt it as a student and in community with others when we were in the field and when we were learning and teaching together. And I want to think about this idea of the wound as the window, which you write about. And I get the sense in the course of the book that there's a number of wounds, maybe an infinite number. And I think that the powerful thing about that theme, Terry, is that it's both so macro and it's so personal, because we each carry our own wounds, and collectively we're also bearing witness and bearing the weight of this wounded world that I sense that we have the feeling we've inflicted on, right? And my generation and the generations coming up behind, I think, are wrestling with what we've been handed, what we're complicit in, how to step to the side, how to work with that wound. And so this idea of the wound as window, there's a temporal component to it as well that I think I'm trying to really work around as I am in dialogue with your book of where are we in that journey. I guess I'm going to come back to this of there's one of the most clear narrative threads in the book, and maybe one of the most overt metaphors, although it was true and lived, is this that Amy mentioned of the divinity tree. And I think about the stages there and the fight to save something that matters so much, that is, as you note, its own multi-faith worship space, as is our earth, as is this home. Are we fighting to keep the divinity tree alive at this point? Are we working with the wound? Are we ready to bring the wreckage home? Where do you, I'm going to ask again, I guess I'm asking for mapping from a mentor here. Of how are we to engage at this point? And how can we see the window in the wound of this world where we are inheriting?
You know, I think about Leopold when he talks about we live in a world of wounds. And two stories come to mind, and I will honor the divinity tree. The divinity tree was a tree that was anywhere from 200 to 250 years old, a red oak. It was there before the divinity school was. Emerson might have known that tree when he gave his radical address to the students. And after the beautiful first paragraph, it was 6 students who invited him to come to Divinity Hall and give this commencement address with a lot of Unitarian ministers there, skeptical, to say the least. What he said was that it was a refulgent moment, a refulgent season, and he talked about the beauty of nature. And then at the end of his talk, he turned to the 6 students and said, "Your God is too small." That got him banned from Harvard for 30 years. And one of my favorite assignments for the students was, I want you to write a sermon that would get you banned from Harvard now. That tree was cut to make space for an interfaith space. There's irony in that. It was a $60 million gift. And it's complex. It was to refurbish this Gothic kind of old building that was costing the Divinity School $1 million a year to heat. And it was an upgrade. And when they showed the map, you know, of what was going to happen, the plans, the divinity tree was not there. And the students immediately said, "Where is the divinity tree?" And they had to come clean and say, "It's in the way." It was a very contentious time. It's too long a story to share. It's in the book. But what I can say is that when the dean, whom I love, made the decision to kill the tree, the students then and faculty and those who were concerned about the tree said then, all we ask now is that we can move into mourning and that we can grieve and that we can bear witness to this moment. When it was decided that the tree would be killed during spring break, you can imagine the protest, and it was changed, and we did witness that tree, branch by branch by branch at the top. What do you do with a wound? I don't think we're even aware of our wounds. I know I'm not, until suddenly you see something with double vision, I would call it. And this is a trigger warning, I'm used to being with students, but John and I were talking about this. My brother had taken his life a few months before. He had hung himself. And we were very close. I understood his situation. This is very personal, but when I received the news from Brooke, we were driving up to Jackson Hole with our son. I pulled over and I said, "It's Dan." And he said, "Yes." And I said, "I'm so proud of him." Because we had had a conversation where he said, "I have to believe my suffering will be met with compassion." And they found him on his knees. But the one thing that haunted me was who took the noose off his neck. And when the tree was killed, starting at the crown, with a man in the crane up above, what they did 100+ times was put a noose around every branch, cut it off. It flew across this Gothic facade, landed back down into the hands of one man who I bore witness 100 times, took off that noose with such care and such compassion that it became a healing. Communicated from one tree to a brother, to every tree, to every brother and sister, every human that had faced that reckoning. And it made me think about sacrifice. It made me think about other things that I could never have wondered. So the wound does become the window. What I couldn't have foreseen is that 5 years later, I would receive a call from a man named John Monks. And I picked up the phone, I said, hello. He said, is Terry Tempest Williams there? I said, this is she. And he said, I have the body of the divinity tree. How does that happen? I fell to my knees. And then he said, I just want you to know I'm a normal person. And I said, well, you're one of the few I know, you know. And he told me that 5 years ago, when the man, and I remember him, when all of the body parts of the tree, of the trunk, this huge trunk, huge diameter, they were loaded into the back of his pickup, a very large pickup. I remember we said, where are you going? And he was tasked to take the body of the divinity tree to Maine to the chipper for firewood. He made a left-hand turn to Vermont. And he had heard about John Monks, who would take heirloom trees, beloved trees, and turn them into art. And he said, I knew this tree had a story when I saw in green spray paint that it said, good luck humans, you're going to need it. Signed, the squirrels. Long story shorter, since you brought it up, Anna, what I can tell you is this. He said, I knew I could make a lot of money from this tree because it was from Harvard. That's what I knew. I knew it had a story, even though I didn't know it. And I knew someone cared enough to make it something beautiful, to be remembered. And he said, I developed a saw that cuts trees vertically instead of horizontally. And we had a showroom. We had 13 tabletop slabs of the divinity tree that I had cut carefully. The tree was extraordinary. And we carried them into the showroom. I carried the first one with a crew member, and he said, as clearly as I am talking to you now, I heard the tree say, I need to go back to the divinity school. And I just said to my crew member, hurry up, get it into this showroom. And then 13 went on. On the 14th one, I heard,